Welcome to the debate. History usually tells us that the giant crushes the underdog.
Right, the player who comes out swinging, who just dominates the field, is the one who takes the crown.
Exactly. But the longest-lasting empire in ancient Chinese history was actually built by a man who did the exact opposite. He took the hits, he retreated, and he basically just waited.
Which, it completely flips our understanding of what power actually looks like.
Yeah, it really does.
We are talking about the Chu Han epic here, the legendary rivalry between Xiang Yu, who was the undisputed giant of his era, and Liu Bang, the ultimate underdog who somehow walked away with an empire.
Which sets up our core disagreement today. So, when we study this rivalry as a playbook for rising power, what is the most important lesson? I argue the core lesson is about managing your own ego. What we often just call humility, Liu Bang won because he had the self-awareness to step back, share power, and that brilliant minds take control.
And I argue the true lesson is actually about strategic endurance. Being able to share power is helpful, sure, but Liu Bang won because he refused to fight when he was weak.
Right.
He mastered the art of letting a superior force exhaust itself.
Let's start with the giant himself, Xiang Yu. He had superior armies, incredible personal bravery, and this terrifying battlefield momentum.
Oh, absolutely terrifying.
Right? But he lost, and I see a perfect lesson here in how ego destroys raw strength. Like Xiang Yu had brilliant advisors, but his paranoia and arrogance meant he had to micromanage everything.
Yeah, he just couldn't let go.
Exactly. He pushed away the very people he needed to run his empire.
Well, I come at it from a different way. Yes, Xiang Yu had an ego, obviously, but his true downfall was an absolute inability to absorb a loss.
How so?
Because of his early success, he became rash. Every time he faced friction, he just charged forward. He burned out his own momentum because he just didn't know how to step back and regroup.
I actually struggled with that distinction when looking at the historical accounts. It is really hard to separate his rashness from his arrogance.
That's fair.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. You really can't separate the rashness from the ego. Think of it like a modern startup that scales way too fast.
Okay.
The founder is brilliant but refuses to hire middle management because he needs total control. When the company collapses under its own weight, it's not just because they move too fast.
Right, it's the lack of structure.
Exactly. It's because the founder chased away the operational experts who could have managed that chaotic growth. So if Xiang Yu knew how to endure a setback but still refused to listen to his generals, he still would have failed, right?
Not necessarily. If he truly understood strategic timing, he wouldn't have been fighting those chaotic, draining battles in the first place.
Interesting.
Right? His lack of endurance created the very situations where he desperately needed those advisors to bail him out. He thought momentum was permanent.
Which is a classic trap.
Exactly. But even if we assume Xiang Yu defeated himself through ego, we still have to explain the other side of the equation. How does a complete unknown like Liu Bang actually capitalize on those mistakes?
Well, that is where Liu Bang's superpower comes in. His biggest move wasn't just surviving. It was drawing in absolute geniuses, like his great general Han Xin.
Sure, he had good people.
But it's more than that. Liu Bang had the self-awareness to say, I am not a military mastermind, so I'm going to hand over my armies to someone who is. Without that specific talent, Liu Bang isn't a master strategist.
He's just the guy getting beat up.
Exactly. He is just a guy getting crushed repeatedly until he dies. His humility was the magnet that pulled in the minds who actually built the empire.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why.
Go for it.
Handing over power to smart people is only part of the playbook. The deeper rule here is, it's asymmetric resource depletion.
Basically wearing the other guy down?
Precisely. Liu Bang was embarrassed and pushed to the brink of destruction over and over, but he survived because he refused to fight decisive battles when he was outmatched.
He stretched the war out.
Yes. He let Xiang Yu march across the country, stretching his supply lines and exhausting his troops. You can have the most brilliant generals in the world, but if you throw them into a meat grinder against a stronger army too early, they will die.
That is true.
Endurance is what creates the space for talent to operate. Aren't there plenty of leaders who are great at delegating but still get wiped out because they engage before they have a structural advantage?
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently.
Yes, timing matters, but endurance without talent is just a slow death.
Do you think so?
Absolutely. Liu Bang survived those massive setbacks precisely because his generals were smart enough to keep the army intact during retreats. His ego management created a culture of deep loyalty.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Right? When things looked terrible, his team didn't abandon him because he treated them as vital partners, not just tools. He built the infrastructure of trust.
But that trust was forged in the fire of shared survival. The playbook clearly shows that Liu Bang's ultimate victory came from waiting until Xiang Yu was fundamentally exhausted.
Wait, but he still had to outmanage him in the end.
Not really. He didn't outmanage Xiang Yu on the final battlefield. He outlasted him. The core strategy is literally build quietly, avoid the rash fight.
So how does this translate when we use this epic as a national playbook today? Well, I think it's pretty direct. I look at rising powers, whether they are global corporations or nations, and I see that the ones succeeding are adopting Liu Bang's focus on human capital. They gather the smartest minds from around the world.
Okay, but
Let me just finish this thought. They build environments where experts are empowered rather than micromanaged by insecure leaders.
look at the evidence right in front of us in the material. Modern leaders who studied this playbook don't just talk about human resources.
What do they focus on then?
They emphasize long-term planning, avoiding unwinnable conflicts, and projecting quiet patience. A rising power today survives the modern giant by refusing to get dragged into a direct confrontation.
Buying time, basically?
Yes, they build economic and structural power quietly in the background, letting the dominant power exhaust itself in endless, rash conflicts.
A plan is just a piece of paper without the geniuses required to execute it, though.
But time is what makes the plan possible.
Sure, but the strategy of building quietly only works if you are building something of actual value. And you do that by, attracting the best minds. You can buy time, but time doesn't build bridges, economies, or technologies. People do.
But those people are entirely wasted if the leader is impulsive. The story of Chu Han is a giant warning sign against impatience destroying the stronger side.
That is definitely the cautionary tale of Xiang Yu.
Right. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you cannot stomach a temporary defeat and let the clock work for you, your momentum will send you right off a cliff.
This is exactly why analyzing these ancient rivalries is so deeply rewarding. We can look at the exact same epic and pull out two distinct mechanisms for success.
Definitely. It's fascinating how one story holds so many layers.
Where you cannot.
And my position remains that a rising power must prioritize strategic endurance. The most vital lesson is to build quietly, refuse to fight when you are structurally weak, and simply outlast your opponent's momentum.
Despite our different lenses, there is a very clear point of convergence here.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page about the main trap.
Right. We both agree that brute strength and relying solely on battlefield dominance, like Xiang Yu did, is a trap. Raw power is brittle if it is not paired with a smarter underlying strategy.
Absolutely. Understanding these dynamics is crucial. When we watch great power rivalries today, we aren't just looking at isolated events.
No, not at all.
We are essentially watching ancient strategies playing out with modern stakes.
There is certainly much more to explore in how this playbook shapes the modern world. We will leave it to you, the listener, to decide whether the future belongs to those who master talent or those who master time.